Another beautiful day to go and get it. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jeremy Harris, owner of Concealed Window Tint, and it's time that you know how it all started. Let's go. So the main reason I wanted to put this together was because I think people really confuse the fact that it's not about window tint, it's not about the cars, it's about taking what you have and doing what you can with what you have. See, in the very beginning, I kind of felt like this whole entrepreneurial journey was impossible because of the things that I lacked. I'd never seen entrepreneurship. There was nobody in my family that was their own business owner. That I could kind of model from, if you will. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to be that model, be that example for the youth coming behind me, so that people kind of have, well, not people, but the youth kind of has more of a blueprint to follow than I did. And that's what I'm hoping we will capture throughout this entire thing. It's wild, man, because what originally got me into window tint, just thinking back, you know, my dad used to tint windows all the time. And, you know, when we would be out places and people would see him and they'd be like, oh, Mark, you know, you tinted my car, blah, 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 or like your dad tints windows and this and that. And I'm like, man, I really want people to recognize me like that, you know? So in the beginning, I kind of was after the popularity more than anything, which is crazy to even think about because, you know, that's the exact opposite reason of why I'm doing what I do now. Like I don't care that people know that I tint windows. It shifted from that to trying to prove what's possible no matter what, because like I didn't come from a wealthy family. Like I've never seen entrepreneurship up close. You can find it everywhere, but a lot of times for you to take a path, you need to see an example of a path first. And I didn't necessarily have that, man. So now I'm trying to be that example for the youth that's coming behind me so that they can literally look at everything that I've done and replicate it, or even take bits and pieces from what I've done to create where I am, or like the reputation that I have, and be able to recreate it. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of giving them bits and pieces that they can take and build their own thing. I don't want anybody, and I don't feel like anyone should follow someone else's exact path, but I think you can learn from everyone and take something of value from them into your own thing. There was a time where like the truck I'm about to work on like wouldn't even fit in my shop barely. And I would literally be like ducking over, trying not to burn my head on the roof. And it's small things that I've had to really adjust to being in more space that, you know, most people probably wouldn't even take into consideration. And I remember the first large truck I had in here, I was standing in the bed of it and my uncle was like, why are you hunched over? Because I had been ducking for so many years trying not to burn my head. When I first started working in here, I still had that mentality that I was gonna bump my head on the roof. So, you know, as crazy as that might seem, you know, it was an adjustment, you know, it was something to kind of get used to. And yeah. It's new, man. Very new. Before I was blessed with this shop, and I say blessed because there was a lot of sacrifice involved. I spent a lot of time trying to avoid people seeing where I was working at, in which, hence the name Concealed Window Tint. It has a double meaning. Concealed was, not only was it a cool like saying, like I wanted a cool business name,
the way I was running the business, people didn't know, people didn't know where I was taking their car. All they knew was that the end result was immaculate. And that's what I was after. I wanted people to buy into me more than what the building looked like or where I was working on it at. Now, did it made things a lot more difficult? But now I joke with people and I'm like, dude, you could lock me in a closet with very little and I would make something out of it. I don't know what, but I just know in me, you don't have to give me everything I may need to be successful. Just give me a little bit and I'll figure it out. We spend a lot of time looking at how other people do things and we try their way. And when their way doesn't work, we get discouraged because their way didn't work. I've had to find what works for me. And that's what a lot of people need to understand. It's not necessarily following a blueprint. It's what way can you get the best result? Because it may not be a way that it's ever been done before. And that's what this journey has taught me. Just because it's been done one way doesn't mean that way is gonna work for me. And it doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means I gotta figure out what way works for me. Going back to that being efficient thing, like I keep bottles already filled over here so I don't have to waste time mixing bottles. And I'll have Jordan, whenever I put an empty bottle up when she's here, she'll go back behind me and fill that one up and go ahead and mix the solution for me. That way I don't have to waste time mixing myself. You know, it's crazy because sometimes during my day, I've done this so many times on so many cars that I've had days where I was not feeling 100% and still was able to produce a quality tint job even at my worst. And that's just from repetition, muscle memory. I mean, I'm sure somebody watching this remembers when Michael Jordan played that game and had the flu and still put up big points. I took that same mentality and was able to condition that over time. So even when I'm not feeling my best, I've done this so many times that I can still put up big numbers. I had tried and quit many times before. And the last time I decided to go after this thing, I told myself, you're gonna fail and that's okay. Just don't quit. And I didn't. And now, 6 years later, I think, I don't know for sure, I think I have one of the best reputations for window tint in the county. But that was only possible after I made that decision to never quit again and to accept failure. If you go into anything accepting the fact that you're gonna fail, you're guaranteed success. Period. Because you already know, like, okay, this is gonna be difficult. I'm probably gonna fail, but that's okay. I'll try again. And that's exactly the mentality that has gotten me to this point. Accepting the fact that, and I still have that mindset. Like, I don't want anybody to misunderstand. I am not perfect by no means. I've worked really hard to condition the right mindset, but I still have moments where those old habits try to creep back in. And I'm like, dude, why do I do this to myself? Like, isn't there something else I can do that's easier? I'm human, just like a lot of people are. But you just gotta understand the process and be okay with failure. You gotta be all right with doing things differently. People don't think long term. We're all very short-sighted because we've been conditioned that way. Like, it's not necessarily just certain people, like it's all of us. Like, we want instant gratification. We want a quick dollar. I've just learned quick money don't last. And I want stuff to last. I see it all the time, man. Like, people do stuff just to make that quick dollar or just to make that money now. And I always have like forward thinking, like a forward thinking mindset. And like, I want the job to look the best forever. That's why I go above and beyond. Like, I want the film way below the moldings. I mean, I want it to never have a chance to, like, if something goes wrong with the film over time, I just want to know that I did everything I could to make it last. That way I'm not going back and like, man, I should have, dang, I knew I should have. You know, I didn't have my first pack of peanuts until I was 26.
Really?
Yeah, because coming up, like, I can't eat bananas because I'm allergic to bananas. And this one time when I was young, I went over to a friend's house and I had some cashews. And on my way home, I started like puking, like walking home. And I'm like, damn, am I allergic to peanuts? Not knowing that cashews and peanuts are different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, peanuts are in the ground and cashews are tree nuts. So, but I could eat Snickers, I could eat peanut butter, but I was always afraid to have like plain peanuts. I don't know why. And I would tell people, like, I'm allergic to nuts. They're like, how do you eat Snickers if you're allergic to nuts? I'm like, I don't know. It's weird, right? Well, one night when I was in security, I was starving and I was craving peanuts. So I'm like, yo, I'm about to risk it all. Like, I want to try peanuts. So I went to the store, I got honey roasted, and then I got some Cool Ranch flavored peanuts, and ate both packs and discovered that I wasn't allergic to peanuts. I'm allergic to tree nuts. So I can't have like walnuts or pecans or cashews, for instance. But yeah, I had been deprived my whole life of peanuts, and now I got a big jar of them at my house because I love them. Like, I like eating peanuts, which is why I like peanut M&Ms. Fun fact, it didn't kill me, but for some reason, like, dude, I don't know why I wanted peanuts so bad and had never had them before. But I had them that night. I tell people that. They're like, you ain't never had peanuts in a glass bottle Coke? I'm like, no, never had. They're like, oh my God. Like, you've been deprived, right? Yeah. Well, I love them now. So, yeah, first pack of peanuts, 26. Macadamia nut cookies look like white chocolate chips. So I grabbed like 3 of them, thinking that it was white chocolate chip cookies, not knowing that there was macadamia nuts in it. Macadamia nuts are apparently a tree nut. Killed 3 cookies before I started my shift and got sick. So like, for me, when I have an allergic reaction to them, I don't swell up, thank God, or like, you know, have like an emergency or nothing. My body like gets sick and I just start puking everywhere. I got so sick. They were so good going down, but I knew they tasted funny and still ate the last 2. It was the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. That was a tough shift. Still, I had to work though. I call them macadamia and death cookies. I'm thinking of all these stories, man, of allergic reactions. It's weird. Golden Corral almost off me too. they mixed banana nut bread with the damn French toast. And I thought banana nut bread was French toast, so I got it, put syrup all over it, and started eating it, not knowing that it was banana nut bread. Golly, almost got me there too. Got sick. Couldn't do nothing about it. They wouldn't cut me a check. But anyway, so we're on the way to my old shop. I want to show you guys like where it all started. Now, when they say do it or die, this shop almost killed me. Like, all jokes aside, because I had a heat stroke. I think it's going on 2 years ago now. From this shop, because the shop would get up to like 107 degrees when the sun was out, because it's a metal carport that I turned into a shop. And again, you know, did a bunch of work out of it. And during the wintertime, I'd have to use a kerosene heater to keep it warm. And during the summer, it's such a small space, I couldn't put an air conditioner in there because it would blow dust around in the shop and it would sacrifice my tent job. So during the summer, I would just go through 5 or 6 shirts a day from sweating so bad. And I'd still put out good work. But one day I was going and hadn't been paying attention to how much water I had drank. And before my grandmother passed away, her caregiver, Willie, would always bring me water outside because my grandma would tell her, you know, run him some water outside, because she knows, like, when I'm going. And I'm not eating or drinking like I'm supposed to. And, you know, after she passed away, obviously Willie wasn't there anymore to bring me water. And I was going. And towards the end of the day that day, while I was talking to a customer, I started to feel myself get really woozy. And I knew something was up, but I didn't know to what extent. I just started feeling really nauseous and lightheaded and left the customer's house. I held it together in front of her because I was like, man, this is gonna be embarrassing if I fall out right in front of her. So I drove myself home in the worst shape I had ever been in. I mean, I was like sick. I mean, got back to my grandmother's house and laid on the couch. Started trying to pound some water, but by this time my body was so depleted that any water that I would get down, like, I ended up throwing it back. Like, I couldn't keep nothing down. At one point, you know, my mom's worried about me, Jordan's worried about, everybody's worried about me. And they're like, you need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, no. Just keep bringing me water. Like, keep bringing me water. Like, get some Gatorade. Let's get some Gatorade. And ended up getting Pedialyte. Like just, you know, trying to force this stuff down and keep it down, and trying to eat some crackers to keep it down. And while I was laying in the back bedroom, like, I felt the whole left side of my body go numb, like down to my gums. Like, it was scary, dude, because like you feel, like I felt it, and then like in between my teeth on the left side, I could feel it like going numb on that one side. And I'm like, dude, you're jacked up. Like, you might want to consider going to the hospital. But being a hard-headed man, I pushed through it and kept pounding Pedialyte best I could, and ended up getting to a point where Jordan could actually take me home. So she took me home in this truck, matter of fact. I made it in the house, collapsed on the couch, still trying to pound Pedialyte, and fell asleep. Like, and when I woke up, like, in my mind, I honestly felt like, I don't know that I'm gonna wake up if I fall asleep, you know? But still being hard-headed, dude, I woke up at like 12:30 that night, starving. I felt like a totally new person. But I got up and ate like 2 cans of Chef Boyardee. I made a sandwich, still killing water. And the next day, went back to the shop. Crazy enough. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. Went right back to the shop. And then went out on the lake. and was damn near on my deathbed the night before. Not one of my smarter stories, by no means. That was very, very foolish of me, because it took a very, very long time for me to get back to equilibrium. And even now, like, I can tell that, like, I'm sensitive to light. Like, I'm sensitive to sunlight, sensitive to heat. And they say after you have something like that, your next one is like way faster than the first one. And I'm very conscious of that. So that's why I keep those big Boss waters all the time. I can kind of keep track of my water intake that way. But boy, sometimes you got to get bit to know it hurts, huh? All right, we're at the shop. I'd have to walk through here every day. Around to the back and come through this door, and those doors would normally be shut. But so, like, with those doors shut and this door shut, there was still a through breeze. And when I was heating this place, the heat would go out from under the door. So I hung this blanket. This blanket's been here for like 4 years, I think. And it kept all my heat inside. But as far as, so like that glass that I got at the other shop, it actually used to hang right here. So I would cut all my patterns and stuff right here, and then my cars would be in this space. I mean, you can still see all the film and stuff sitting around that I still have here. But this is where it all started, man. So this was just a carport that my grandmother and my grandfather put up. And I had always been working in the elements. So as soon as they put something up that would keep the sun off of me or keep the rain off of me, I pretty much took it over. And instead of them being able to park their cars under here, I was working on my truck under here, and I started trying to tint windows under this thing. And when I started to try and take it more serious, I was like, man, I need to close it in. Like, I need concrete. I don't have concrete. You know, everybody else has got concrete and a roof and doors and all that stuff. So I hustled and hustled and hustled on security, was making the t-shirts, and saved up the money to actually put the concrete floor down. And then I think my mom helped me pay for the metal for the sides, because again, like, a carport comes with just the roof, like no sides, no front and back, nothing. So we put the metal on the sides to kind of close that in. And then me and my dad, if I remember correctly, built this back wall to put a wall back here. And then this is actually a house door. Like, this is not a shop door. This is a house door that I got from Lowe's that I built. And then everything else kind of came together after that. You know, I insulated it, put these walls up, but I was able to take this and, again, like, I probably did 1,500 cars out of this little spot. And when I tell people that, and they're just like, man, out of a little spot, but like, even when we got here, you were like, that's the shop? And I'm like, yeah, that's it. So yeah, so I did, you know, man, over $250,000 worth of cars, or worth of film work over the years out of this little spot, you know? And for a long time, I had always felt like I needed the nicest shop and I needed the nicest things, and, you know, dealing with bees all the time. Like, there were bees in here so often that I always kept this stuff in here. Like, that's why this is here, because I had to deal with wasps and stuff all the time. But unfortunately, my thermometer doesn't work anymore. Apparently the batteries are dead. But there's a picture, and I'm gonna get you the picture that I held up. I have a picture of me in here during a work day. Like, you can see the sweat on me, and I'm holding this thermometer and it says 107. So it was 107 degrees inside the shop while I was working And like I said, over those 1,500 cars, like they all turned out the way they needed to. They all turned out the way people expected them to. And 3/4 of the people or more didn't even know where this shop was, because I had been picking up and delivering cars this whole time because I needed people to buy into the quality of work I produced, because I knew if they pulled up to a place that looked like this, they would be like, there's no way a good tint job is coming out of this shop. There's no way. So that's why I offered pickup and delivery. I offered pickup and delivery so that they wouldn't see where I was doing it. They would just see the end result. They would see me. So I showed up, I'm very well put together. I brought their car back. The tint job was great. That's what I needed people to buy into, because I knew if they pulled up here, they were gonna be like, I don't feel good about this. But if you don't know already, some of the best food comes out of those mom and pop restaurants that don't look like much. And you get some of the worst food at the chain restaurants. So yeah, man, this is it. I wish there was more to show you. Like, I wish I could be like, all right, now come to this part here. But there really isn't much. Like, it's just 360 square feet. Like, I built these shelves to put all my tools on. Like, I found little ways to kind of make the use of the space that I had. You know, I put these magnets up there to kind of hold tools and whatnot. But I mean, where you see everything is pretty much where everything was. That's pretty much it. All this old film, dude. Like, I used to pull, where you seen me pull film off earlier, like this is where that happened, in here. Like, I'd pull film off right here, my car would be here, slap the film up, make my pattern, I'd walk around this, and then that big truck, like I was telling you, do you really think that truck would fit in here? It would, because I had a truck that same size in here.
Really?
Yep. Yep. I actually had a truck in here on 44s. And what I would have to do is pull it straight into the middle and kick it to one side and get it really close to one side, like dangerously close, but not close enough to where it touched. And then I could open the opposite door all the way. So then I'd tint this door, get that right, then I'd back it up, pull it back in and kick it to this side to do the other door, because I needed the space on both sides. But like I was telling you, when I was doing a tint strip or trying to do a windshield, like I would literally, I wish I had something to stand on. I don't right this second, but I would literally be, oh yeah, I do. So I would be standing on the edge of the car. I had to come to the side, but I would be standing here like this, like hunched over, like trying to shrink the windshield and get it right on both sides, dude. And I mean, the metal, like I put this insulation up like 3 years after I started working in here just to kind of help with the heat. And the metal would get so hot, if I accidentally touched my head to the roof, it would leave a red whelp on my head because the metal was so hot. Yeah, man, but it still turned out the way it was supposed to, man. Like, nobody knew, like, man, you can tell he did this in a small shop. It don't look that great. They never knew, which is crazy, you know? It wasn't that I didn't have everything I needed. It's just, I hadn't gotten to the point where I do whatever it takes to produce. And whereas it was not easy, I mean, it definitely paid off. Definitely paid off. Whew. Yeah, I hung these lights. Like, these aren't even wired. Like, they're not wired to the shop. Like, you see it's a drop cord that runs from up there all the way around to this power strip, because I didn't know anything about electricity, so I couldn't wire it up. So I put a power strip here that this runs to the outlet out there and powers this. So if the power went off, or like I was tinting in here one day and the landscaper was outside mowing the grass and he didn't know I was in here. So he's weed eating and pulls the cord out of the house, and it gets completely dark in here. And I'm like, yo! It's crazy, man. Crazy. But yeah, this is it, dude. I've done like crazy amounts of work out of this little bitty space. And like I said, I had always been like embarrassed for people to see it because, you know, I have such a good reputation and had been known for such good work. You know, towards the end, when, you know, right before my uncle let me work in his shop, like I started to let people like drop stuff off here. And it kind of like, it was the wow factor after I did a good job and they come back and get it. And they're just like, dang man, you really did a good job. And you know, they're looking at the shop and kind of looking at their car. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. You are right. I did do a good job. But you gotta start somewhere, man. You just gotta know what you wanna produce and give yourself no choice. That's what I did. And like I said, a lot of people, like, you know, I've spoke a lot about how hot it gets in here, but before I figured out that I could use like a kerosene heater in this shop, like there was this one time where I was tinting a car and it was so cold that my hands went numb, and like my hands went numb to the point where like they hurt. But again, like there was a result I was after. I had to produce for the customer, and muscle memory kind of took over. Whereas I couldn't feel what I was doing. That truck was done 3 years ago, and it's still riding around with the same film that was on it 3 years ago, and dude's still happy with it because he goes to the gym. I've seen him, and I've seen the truck, you know, and I walked by it and I'm like, did I really do, like, did it really turn out good? And he's like, man, I still love the tint. I'm like, man, that's crazy. If you knew what I had to go through to make the money for your windows, man, that's nuts, dude. It's nasty in here right now, but you gotta start somewhere, dude. And now I go from this to picking up a brand new 2021 Corvette. That's insane. Yeah, now, man, people, I listen to people complain about the little bit they do have and, you know, talk about all this stuff. Well, I would do this, but, well, I would start my own business, but, man, I would, but, and look, I still, like, this doesn't even look like a really professional shop, but I still got my sales tax ID. Like, you have to have your sales tax form, like, hanging up in the shop. And I'm like, I can't hang this up in my shop. Like, it's not even a real, like, business structure. Man, I had all these misconceptions, man, about starting your own business, being your own boss, you know, becoming an entrepreneur. And, like, I shattered all of them. So now, like I said, when I hear people talk about like not having exactly the right stuff, or man, I would do this, but like my family wasn't born into money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. Like, you can do whatever you really want to do if you're willing to put in the work, or if you're willing to suffer a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna say, like, there were days where I was smoking hot. And again, like that whole heat stroke story I told you in the truck, like that's where that all took place. But again, I was right back in there the next day, knowing I probably shouldn't have been. But, all right, let's go get this car. Years ago, I would have to be the one to pick up every car, deliver every car, but I've grown to a point now where I can't do everything. So Jordan does a lot of the picking up and dropping off for me. And for instance, this car is headed back to the customer. I didn't necessarily get to one-on-one with the customer, but that's just kind of where we're at right now. Sweet car though. This isn't something that I learned from my dad. I actually pulled up a YouTube video back when there was Yahoo? I think it was called Yahoo. So I Yahooed how to shrink window tint and found my way to YouTube and found a video, watched a 30-minute video twice. I spent about an hour watching the video. And after I watched it, I went outside and tried it for myself. And been doing this ever since. That's why I tell people all the time, man, like, we are so flooded with information. It is ridiculous not to know some stuff. I feel like, and I joke with people, I'm like, yo, YouTube has made me thousands of dollars. And they misunderstand me and they're like, oh, you do YouTube? And I'm like, no. But when I bought my house, I didn't know how to change light fixtures, looked it up on YouTube, changed all my light fixtures, saved money there. The video that I watched on how to shrink window tint years later has made me quite a bit of money just by taking that initiative. I didn't have all the right leaders and examples and the right guidance and all that stuff, but nowadays there's really no excuse not to have or not to seek the guidance that you require, because it's all there. It is all there. People spend way too much time being entertained than they do actually consuming content that they can use for years. So like that 30-minute video that I watched twice has led me to doing well over $250,000 in cars. 30-minute video, watched it twice. And now, years later, I do it for a living because I took the initiative to seek the information that I needed. So, I have a magnetic watch. That's not normal. I put my Sharpie and my hard card on retractable, what do you call them? Badge holders or something? Because I realized that in order for me to get faster, I needed to be more efficient. So I paid attention to a full day and I realized that I was digging in my pockets way too much. And what was I digging in my pocket for? A Sharpie marker and a hard card. So if they're right here, I don't have to reach for them, they're right there, boom. If I need a Sharpie, right there. Finding ways to be more efficient can really change the amount that you get done in a day. And believe it or not, it was a game changer and still is. I mean, first time I ever benched 315, I had always been afraid of it. And I spent like a whole 12-hour shift one day visualizing myself over and over actually benching 315 to the point where when I was sitting in the car, like my adrenaline got up, I got anxious, but like I just sat there and would like open my eyes and close my eyes, open my eyes and close my eyes, and visualize the whole process. And then it's either that day or the very next day, I had visualized it so much over and over that when I went in the gym, I benched 315 for the first time in my life. Like I had already done it. And I'm like, damn man, like that must be a hack. So now, for cars that I've never touched before, if I can lay eyes on them and just see them and kind of look at them, I can like go through the process and like visualize me laying the film out, marking the patterns, cutting the patterns, I've actually been driving some cars on the way to the shop and like just kind of looking around like as I'm driving and tinted the whole car in my mind before I got to the shop. So then when I got here, I just redid everything that I just thought about. And it's like the car went perfect. And I'm like, man, there is something really to that. So right now, while I'm telling you that, I'm trying to like visualize exactly, because I know exactly how film feels, I know how it acts, I know how it's gonna roll out, and I know based on the shape of this windshield where my trouble spots are gonna be. So in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how to combat that. And I gotta be honest, I'm stuck right now, which is why I wanted to get this car and have some good time with it. Because if he needed this car back today, it would be time sensitive. So I'd be pressured to try and figure out how to get it done. But the fact that it's not his main vehicle, and he's like, dude, take your time with it, and you know, get it back to me when you're finished, it gives me time to actually sit and try to figure out the best way to load this film, because I need it to go right the first time. So if I need to do prep, if I need to walk away from the car today and kind of think on it tonight, that's fine. The ultimate goal is not to just dive right in because you're ready to get that money. It's what's the best way to get it done and it look the best. So like with the steering wheel here, I don't know if it would even be a good idea for me to load the film from this side. And like I said, I'm just kind of walking it through my mind to try and figure out what the best way to do it is. This thing ain't got but 258 miles on it.
Really?
It's brand new. And I know I put at least 15 on it. 15 of those miles are mine. I told my daughter that I was getting a Corvette, and she knows that I'm getting it to work on. She was like, are we getting it to keep it? Or are you getting it to work on it? I'm like, I'm getting it to work on it. She was like, I'm gonna need you to get it and keep it. Way to put the pressure on. But she's determined. She was like, I want to drive a Lamborghini when I go to school. I'm like, okay, you will not be a spoiled rich little girl. I said, you might want to figure out how to make the money to buy a Lamborghini between now and the time you start driving then. I am not giving you a Lamborghini at 16. As cool as that probably would be for you, I think when you're given stuff, you don't appreciate them. Or when it comes easy. Let me say it that way. When things come easy, you don't appreciate them. Anything that you really got to put some blood, sweat, and tears into, like you're gonna respect it in a totally different way. First, I was trying to figure out why I kept failing to become a police officer. And the more I look back now, I totally understand that security and the desire to be in public safety put me in a position to become a better communicator. So like the 4 years that I was in security, I never had to pull a weapon or anything on anybody because I had learned effective communication and was able to talk my way pretty much out of any situation. Now, I'm not saying that that's there are situations where you shouldn't use whatever you have on your duty belt if you're in public safety, but like there were people that would come into the company and be there for a week and pepper sprayed somebody or use something on their duty belt that was really unnecessary, and I was there for 4 years and never used anything because I became an effective communicator. And it was through wanting to be better, or like that desire to be better, that led me to security, led me to self-development. Now everything that I learned and being able to ride, like I would not ride and listen to music. My grandmother got me the Tony Robbins seminar DVDs, and I would literally listen to these seminar tapes for 12 hours, over and over and over. Like I still got them, to the point where the cardboard like
box thing that they were in is like ragged. I mean, because I'd opened it and closed it, opened it and closed it so many different times, loading different CDs and just trying to really retain the information so that I could be who it was I felt like I needed to be. And man, you know, like I said, looking back, it makes sense now why I broke my foot right before I was supposed to go for the Raleigh Police physical test and go through that whole hiring process. Because at first I was like, man, why am I not being chosen? Like, I know that I would make a good police officer, but I was never supposed to be a cop. I was supposed to learn the communication required to be an effective like public safety officer or communicator. But had I not failed, it wouldn't have led me to everything else, man. So sometimes you don't necessarily understand why you're not going the path why you're not being blessed with the path you want, but there is value there that you got to take to your next step. I call it stepping stones, and security was just a stepping stone, man, and it made everything else possible. Because like I said, I wouldn't be who I am had I not had that time to ride around and just literally immerse myself in self-development and becoming who I needed to become. Because it wasn't the fact that I wasn't working hard. I wasn't the right person for the type of business that I wanted to do. And now I like to think that I am, based on my customer feeling comfortable with me driving his, you know, brand new car and, you know, that peace of mind. But I had to become the right person before I was even able to get here. And it was a stepping stone that I had to hit it, man. Had to hit that stepping stone. Which is cool though, you know. That's why I tell people now, you know, maybe you're unhappy where you are, but there is some type of value that you need to obtain in whatever position you're in right now that will benefit the next step. So when you go into anything, like if you hate your job and you're like, dude, I hate this place, like I gotta do something else, that's okay. Like, be okay with that for a little bit, because there's value somewhere that you really need to pull from that job in order to be a better version of you at your next step. It's pretty cool, man. It's a big perspective shift for me. Perspective shift and understanding, for sure. I tell you, I feel a little bit too comfortable driving this car. It almost feels like I belong here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do not feel uncomfortable whatsoever behind the wheel of this thing. And I probably should, but I don't know, man. Sometimes you kind of get feelings like you're meant to be in a position. And when you're close to it, you kind of get those intuitive feelings, you know? Like you're kind of getting prepped for whatever's next. Told you I had a dream I was in an orange Lambo. So maybe this is preparation for that orange Lambo. I don't want an orange Lambo though. God, if you're listening, I like red. I ain't big on orange. I do like red though. You know what I'm saying? But it's cool, man. That's why I'm so big on self-development now, because I used to be such a negative person, dude. Like, it's crazy that I used to walk around saying I hate people. I'm like, man, I hate people. I hate people. I had such a negative life, negative perspective. Man, it wasn't until I changed that and, you know, shifted my own perspective. You know, people wait for things in their life to shift it for them, and it's never gonna happen. Like, you can't wait for life to shift your perspective, because what's gonna happen is, if you don't do it on your own, life is gonna rip the rug out from under you, and you're gonna start playing the victim. I see it all the time, man. That's where the old saying or the adage comes from. People saying, life's a bitch and then you die. Like, that's terrible. That saying came from people who didn't take initiative and boss up when they were supposed to, and life pulled the rug out from under them, and now they're playing the victim card. It was their own fault. It wasn't life.
I guess they should be saying like, I'm the bitch and then I die. I don't know. I hope there is a spot at the car wash that we can get this thing in. Spray the dust off of it. It was a lot cleaner when I got it, but that pollen has taken over, which is not necessarily my fault, but you know, the end result, presentation is everything. You gotta make sure it looks good when you take it back. Tint the windows, I mean, it looks great, but you know, you definitely want it to be a wow factor.
Scared money don't make money, step back to timid. Cause closed mouths don't get fed, you gotta get it. I'm on the grind, hard work really pays off. Until the day it does, I ain't taking no days off.
Please don't look inside. That car is a mess. I pretty much live out of it. 400,000 miles, I had that car in high school, man. It's seen a lot of road. I joke with people now and I'm like, man, that car's got more miles in reverse than you got forward. Oh, man. Whew. Get some lights on in here. Typically my day runs, I get here, I decipher what needs to be done. You know, you can get so caught up in what you got going on and your struggles and pains that you deal with, you kind of miss the small stuff that can kind of make you smile.